astonished, but not as astonished as the old Triceratops.
I'll leave her alone.
Is it endangered? Yeah, about 100 million years ago it was endangered.
It's fake news.
You've been called out there, that's great.
Let's talk about the podcast.
Let's talk about the podcast.
You've had some cracking guests. You've got a real mixture, haven't you? Because you've had Shappy Khorsandi, Lee Mack, comedians. You're bringing in the funny, then you've also got the real factual.
Yeah, we've had Katie Price, we've had Chris Packham. It was very revealing, Chris Packham, wasn't he? It was...
Mention Dr. Zand.
Dr. Zand.
Who?
I was waiting patiently over there.
Oh, Dr. Zand. We wanted Chris, but we couldn't get him.
It's always the way.
But no, Zand was lovely. It was brilliant. It's such a fascinating area because, you know, Minna has been diagnosed, and Minna is an expert in early years brain development, and I'm a fool. But I'm a fool with an attitude. So, you know, I try and play sort of devil's advocate. I mean, I totally understand that ADHD exists, but we...
Or does it?
Or does it, yeah. No, because in the conversations we've had with people, some academics as well...
Paediatric psychologists claim that it doesn't exist and it's a social construct and it's actually contemporary lifestyles that are causing children and adults alike to not pay attention very well. But then that's a misunderstanding of ADHD in itself, because often we hyper-focus as long as we're not bored by what we're dealing with.
I think that's what Zan was saying, coming on as a doctor and hearing your perspectives, and actually from a listener point of view, it's you do come at ADHD in two very different ways, don't you?
Yeah.
It does get, we bicker, and then we realise that I was right all along, as Brian Clough said. Now, obviously, I have to defer quite a lot of the time, but I will get a cheap laugh in there if I can. You know.
And your 5 BAFTAs.
And I always mention that I've won 5.
Have you got 5 BAFTAs?
Yeah, I've got 5. Yeah, should we talk about that? 3 different shows, 5 BAFTAs.
But as you say, though, coming at it from different ways, because would you be right to say you're questioning ADHD and the connotations around it, and then you're kind of coming in with a bit more of the science aspect?
And lived experience, because he puts up with it at the end of the day. And I don't mean that wholly negatively, but it can be a challenge. And I think if you're in an environment that is quite triggering and makes you feel confined as an ADHD, then we've got a problem. And my issue is that we've got schools that are really quite challenging places for ADHD and neurodivergent children, and that's what we end up spending a lot of our time talking about with all our guests, actually.
Yeah, we do. I think some of the impetus for the podcast was obviously Minna's diagnosis and her background in early years brain development, but also we went to see a comedy show with a couple of mates of mine were doing an open mic, and 5 comedians came on and opened with, "Hi, I'm ADHD." By the time we got to the 4th one, I was like, "Tell us a joke, come on." Yeah. So, but it was interesting to see that it almost compelled us to do the podcast because that we were both sort of immersed in this world of ADHD, whether we wanted to be or not. You know, so many comedians seem to identify as ADHD. We've had loads of them on. We've had Lee
Mack's been on,
Rory Bremner, we've got Stephen Fry coming on, Jimmy Carr, you know, some big names. And it's not to say, isn't it wonderful, but it's to demonstrate, because a lot of these people come with really quite heart-rending stories.
I mean, the leitmotif across all of our guests has been a history of anxiety, depression, self-harming, suicidal thoughts, suicide attempts, and you're sat there from the outside looking and going, wow, they're amazing, they're so successful. But to me, what's more amazing is that they're still here today.
Yes.
And
and I was going to say, you talk on the podcast a lot about the diagnosis being the major saving factor in all of this, and also about the misconceptions that come with ADHD is something that seems to be really important to you.
Especially with women as well.
Absolutely, because, you know, I think there's only something like 2% of the scientific literature that is based on symptoms in girls and women, and that speaks volumes alone. So we've got girls in the classroom that are masking, trying really hard to get on with their schoolwork.
Whereas the boys are boinging around and throwing things around. No, it's just like, they're just boys will be boys, you know. Whereas...
and it's not like that at all. It manifests very differently in girls, women, boys, men. Age is a factor as well, and I just think we need our healthcare professionals to hurry up and get with the times and really improve their understanding of what they're having to deal with, because they're missing so many ADHDs, and it's not something that we're suffering with, but society, the way it is constructed, is making us suffer. There is such a lack of understanding and support out there for ADHDers, be they children or adults, and it really needs to change.
Oh,
I think it is. I think there's a greater realisation about it.
Yeah, but you go to schools and those children are suffering disproportionately. We've got over 140,000 neurodivergent children being pushed out of school-based education. That shouldn't be happening. It should be a joyful time in their lives, and they're being pushed out of school-based education, and that's just morally wrong.
And this is the thing,
with awareness,
isn't it? Yeah, exactly. You're covering such important topics, but you've got the lightness of touch as well. We've got to talk about gone fishing whilst you're here, Paul. One of my favourite programmes.
And Bob's cooking, though.
Well, you absolutely love it, don't you, Nina?
Ah, it's the best bit.
He's cooking. It's
what
not
was
the
it?
best bit.
What's it Wellington he made? That was sublime.
I think awards will be coming your way for the podcast as well, because it's absolutely brilliant. It's called I'm ADHD, No You're Not.
And the live
Oh, yeah, we're hoping to
available.
Do some...
there you go. No, live talk.
We're hoping to do some live dates